The Tsavo River does not announce itself. It arrives as a smell first, mud and acacia sap, and then as a sound so low it registers in the chest before the ears. In March of 1898, that sound stopped a railway. 900 men were building a bridge across this stretch of East Africa, laying steel across a wound of red earth that would one day connect Mombasa to Uganda. They worked by lantern light, slept in canvas tents with thorn barriers called bomas around the camp, and told themselves the darkness beyond the firelight was empty. It was not empty. Something was moving along its edge, patient in a way that no human patience can match, studying the rhythm of the camp the way an engineer studies a bridge, for its weak point. What happened over the following 9 months would become one of the most investigated predator events in modern history, not because it was the deadliest, but because it broke every assumption people carried about what a lion does. This was not supposed to happen. Lions were understood, filed away, categorized as dangerous but predictable, ambush hunters of the open grassland, wary of fire, wary of men. The animal at Tsavo did not read that file. To understand what unfolded on that riverbank, you first have to unlearn the lion you think you know. Picture the mane first. The image sold on flags, coats of arms, logos. That mane is not decoration. It is a billboard of hormonal history, a visible record of testosterone, age, and genetics. And in hot climates, it is a liability. Trapping heat, a lion's body is already straining to shed. Evolution rarely keeps a costly feature, unless it is buying something valuable. Intimidation and the signaling of fighting strength to rivals before a fight becomes necessary. A lion's mane is armor made of information. Beneath it is an animal built on contradiction. A male can weigh over 190 kilograms, yet a lion at full sprint moves in near silence, its retractable claws and padded feet erasing the sound of impact. It can reach 80 kilometers per hour, but only for seconds, because a lion's cardiovascular system is not built for distance. It is built for the ambush, for the 8-second window where the outcome of a hunt is decided, after which its body burns out fast, forcing it to rest, to breathe, to wait for the next opportunity rather than chase one down. And here is the fact that reorganizes everything people believe about lions. The hunting is rarely his. Lion prides are matriarchies in practice, if not in title. It is the lionesses, leaner, faster, working in coordinated pairs and trios, who do most of the killing, using formations that mirror military pincer movements, some driving prey toward others lying hidden in the grass. A pride is not a family led by a king. It is a cooperative, and the male's role is different. Patrol the border, defend the territory, protect the cubs of his bloodline from the single greatest threat to lion cub survival, other male lions. This is the detail that unsettles people most. When a coalition of males takes over a new pride, infanticide is common. It is not cruelty in the human sense. It is reproductive strategy, cold and evolutionary. A female will not enter estrus while nursing another male's cubs, so removing them accelerates the transfer of genes. Nature does not optimize for kindness. It optimizes for continuation. This is what makes lions difficult for people to hold in their minds honestly. We want the noble king or the bloodthirsty killer. The truth is a third thing, an animal operating a complex social intelligence system, alliance building, grief displaying. Mothers have been observed staying beside dead cubs for days, while also being fully, unsentimentally, a predator. At Tsavo, 2 male lions, later studied, preserved, and now standing in Chicago's Field Museum, did something outside even that complicated profile. They began treating the railway camp as a hunting ground, not through the instinct of typical hostility, but through what forensic and behavioral study would later suggest was a learned, escalating pattern. For decades, the story of the man-eaters of Tsavo was told as legend, inflated by the era's appetite for colonial adventure narrative, with casualty estimates that grew with each retelling, eventually claimed by some storytellers to exceed 100 victims. This is where the documentary lens must slow down, because separating myth from evidence is the entire point. In 2009, scientists led by researchers including Justin Yeakel, Bruce Patterson, and Nathaniel Dominy conducted an isotopic analysis of the preserved Tsavo lion's bones and hair, now held at the Field Museum. Carbon and nitrogen isotopes accumulate in body tissue based on an animal's diet, creating a chemical record that survives long after the animal itself. The results tempered the legend considerably. The isotope data suggested the two lions killed roughly 35 people between them, one responsible for about 24, the other about 11, over their final 9 months. Far fewer than the 135 Colonel Patterson claimed by the time he wrote his book's later editions, a number he'd started decades earlier at 28. More interesting than the number was the why, and here the story gets more contested than most documentaries let on. Two competing explanations have circulated for over a century, and researchers still don't fully agree on which one did the most work. The first is ecological. That year, a rinderpest epidemic had devastated populations of buffalo and other large herbivores across East Africa, collapsing the normal prey base for lions across the region, and the Tsavo area was also 2 years into a drought. Under that kind of pressure, the theory goes, two lions turned to the easiest available source of calories, a camp of railway workers with insufficient defenses. The second is physical, and more recent. A 2017 dental microwear study, examining the actual teeth of the preserved lions under magnification, found that one of the two, the one responsible for the majority of the killing, had suffered a severe, disabling injury, a broken canine that developed into a root-tip abscess, an infection painful enough to have made normal hunting close to impossible. Lions subdue prey like buffalo and zebra by clamping down with their jaws. A lion in that condition would have struggled badly against anything that could fight back. His partner, by contrast, showed only minor, fairly ordinary dental wear, and, by the isotope record, ate far more of his diet from normal prey and far less from humans. That second study wasn't offered as a companion to the ecological theory. It was published, in part, to challenge it. The researchers behind it argued the dental evidence made a stronger, more individually specific case than a region-wide food shortage that would have pushed every Tsavo lion toward man-eating, not just these two. The honest state of the science is less a tidy convergence of causes and more an open question. Was it the ecosystem, the injury, or, as seems most likely, an injured lion exploiting an ecosystem already under strain, with a healthy partner drawn in by the success of the hunt? Whatever combination it was, one detail holds regardless of theory. This was not indiscriminate savagery. It was two individual animals, at least one of them compromised, adapting to circumstance. This matches a broader truth researchers have documented across Africa. The overwhelming majority of lions never attack humans, even living in close proximity to villages for generations. Man-eating events cluster around specific, identifiable conditions: prey scarcity, injury, or old age, reducing a lion's ability to hunt normal prey, or human encroachment into unprotected sleeping areas at night, when lions are most active and human vision is at its worst. Consider a very different, better documented case. In Tanzania's Selous region, and later studied extensively around villages bordering the Serengeti, wildlife biologists have tracked problem lions and found the pattern repeats: injury, drought-driven prey collapse, or habitat fragmentation, pushing lions into contact zones. Understanding this has directly reshaped conservation policy, shifting resources toward livestock protection, fortified bomas, motion sensor lights, rather than blanket lion culls, because the data showed removing man-eaters without addressing the underlying driver simply created a vacancy another lion, under the same pressures, would fill. There is also a communication dimension worth understanding, because it explains how something as large as a lion can move through a landscape and coordinate across kilometers without visual contact. A lion's roar can carry up to 8 kilometers on a still night, produced by a uniquely elastic structure in the larynx, a flat, square-shaped vocal fold, unlike the rounded folds of most mammals. allowing air to pass through in slow, resonant pulses instead of the quick vibrations that make most animal calls higher-pitched. This is not a battle cry so much as a territorial broadcast, a way of saying this ground is occupied without expending the energy of a physical confrontation, and prides recognize the specific voice of every member. Their senses, too, are built for the specific hours they hunt in. A lion's eyes contain a reflective layer called the tapetum lucidum, bouncing available light back through the retina a second time, giving them vision roughly 6 times more sensitive in darkness than a human's. This is why dusk and dawn, the hours campers often treat as safe, packing up hours, are, biologically, exactly when a lion's advantage over a human is greatest. None of this makes the lion a villain. It makes it legible. Every documented unusual behavior, territorial takeovers, opportunistic man-eating, long-distance roaring, ambush timing, traces back to selective pressure, not temperament. The Tsavo lions weren't an aberration in nature's design. They were nature's design, responding to a broken system and a broken body, which is precisely why the story unsettled the humans who lived through it. It revealed how thin the line is between predictable and dangerous, and how quickly that line moves when an animal or an ecosystem is under strain. Now place a single person back into that landscape, not a railway camp, but a modern guided walking safari, in a reserve where lions are known to roam, the kind of controlled but genuinely wild encounter thousands of travelers experience responsibly every year. The scenario experienced guides describe is almost always the same. Not a charging lion in the open, but a lion encountered at close range in thick brush, startled at a distance where running is not a choice, because a lion can close 20 meters faster than a human sprinter can process the decision to flee. The first mistake, and the one that turns a tense encounter into a fatal one, is running. Running activates a predator's chase response, an instinct so deep it operates below conscious thought in a lion's brain, hardwired to the sight of fleeing prey. A human sprint against an animal that can hit that speed and reach it in 3 strides is not an escape. It is an invitation. The correct response is close to unbearable in the moment. Stop moving quickly, stand tall, and do not make eye contact prolonged enough to read as a challenge, but do not turn your back either. Guides trained in this scenario teach people to raise their arms slowly to appear larger, speak in a firm, low, continuous voice, not a scream, which mimics the sound of distressed prey, but a steady human voice, an unfamiliar and destabilizing sound to a hunting animal's expectations. Group cohesion matters immensely here. A lion's calculus around risk changes dramatically when it is assessing one small target versus what looks like a single, large, strange organism formed by several people standing shoulder to shoulder. Reading the animal's body matters as much as managing your own. A lion's tail tells the story its face may not. A slow, low swish can indicate simple alertness, but a rapid, twitching tail, ears flattened back against the skull, and a body dropped low with weight shifted onto the haunches are the specific, well-documented signals of an animal preparing to close distance fast. That is the moment, not before, when experienced guides say retreat, not flight. Slow, deliberate steps backward, keeping the animal in view, ceding ground without turning it into a chase. There is a harder truth in the survival literature. One documentaries often soften. In the rare case, a lion does commit to an attack at close range, fighting back, targeting the eyes and nose, using any available object as a barrier, has been part of a small number of documented human survivals because it disrupts the predictable pattern the animal's instincts are running on. But this is the last chapter of the story precisely because it is meant to almost never be needed. Every piece of real wildlife safety guidance exists to keep a person out of that final moment entirely, traveling with an experienced guide who reads terrain and fresh sign, staying inside a vehicle or camp perimeter during dawn and dusk, never approaching a resting pride to photograph it, never running at the sight of one. What separates injury from a story told safely afterward, in nearly every recorded case, is not luck. It is whether the person understood, in the second that mattered, that they were not looking at a monster, but at an animal running an ancient, logical calculation about energy, risk, and reward, and that the goal was never to overpower that calculation. It was to make yourself the answer it didn't expect. The lions of Tsavo have been dead for over a century, and still they are studied, their teeth scanned, their isotopes measured, their story corrected each decade as science replaces legend with evidence, and even the scientists still arguing over exactly why it happened. That, more than the roar, or the mane, or the myth of the king of beasts, may be the truest thing about this animal. It forces us to keep looking closer, to keep replacing the story we assumed with the one that's actually there, even when that story refuses to resolve into a single, clean answer. We built empires on the symbol of the lion while barely understanding the animal itself, mistaking its patience for majesty and its opportunism for evil, when it was neither. Only an old, exact intelligence, still writing itself into the grass long after we stopped watching closely enough to read it.